From 1812 to the present day, the Royal Canadian Hussars continue to play a living part in Canada's military life. Since the inception of the regiment, its personnel have been recruited from among those civilians who devote their days to building Canada's economy and give their evenings and weekends to the militia. The militia soldier is a better citizen of his country, with more pride in himself, with a stronger sense of his nation's history. The men in these tanks are learning more than just how to bash on across the fields. They are learning self-discipline, the value of good health, and the techniques of leadership. They are learning how to be better citizens of Canada and good soldiers in the Royal Canadian Hussars. Approaching Mount Royal, you can see the Hussars' main armory, a familiar landmark in Montreal. Other squadrons are located in Saint-Jean, Quebec, and Montreal, South Longueuil. The main armory was built in 1935. When completed, it was the most up-to-date of its kind in Canada. The Royal Canadian Hussars have carried on the tradition of advanced thinking. On Tuesday and Thursday evenings, student tank commanders using a modern tactics trainer gain skill in directing their tanks and crews by radio in classroom conditions. The student meets the problems he will face in the field and gets his first insight into the ways in which they can be solved. Putting an extra tank into battle at this point may look good, but the instructor will soon tell him if it's a practical move. This tactics board is the first training device of its kind ever built in Canada and interests the director of the Armoured Corps training in Ottawa. The Hussars commanding officer is interested too. The student learns that he must often take cover, but he must also be able to shoot as well. Can the gun fire from this position? The Hussars learn to fire their guns on weekends at Camp Petawawa. This particular weekend is a cold one. It's below zero, and the best way to keep warm is to work. Each of these shells weighs 17 pounds, and a tank can fire up to 20 per minute. These men load the ammunition now, and will have the satisfaction of firing it downrange later on. This isn't a nice warm classroom. This is where you find out how things really work. What does a shell burst look like? When this truck gets up to the firing line, it won't be long before the newcomers to the regiment find out. The instructors at the camp brief the tank crews on what to expect and what to do. This is a last-minute check of the knowledge learned in the armory back in Montreal. The men listen and review their drills. All precautions are taken. As the first crews line up, the last of the ammunition is unloaded. And now, mount up. The welcome order starts things moving. When everybody is set, the range safety officer orders firing to start. This time, the tanks are firing at targets they can see. This is called a direct shoot. It takes practice to see where the shell has landed, and it takes a cool mind to give quick corrections to the gunners. It's noisy here, but there's a good view. The men find that practice improves their aim. Our crew can do better, I hope. The green flag is the signal to cease firing. The first crews are out of ammo, but there's plenty left for the others. Another important weapon carried by these modern steeds is the machine gun. It is only as accurate as the man in the turret makes it. You need space and time to improve your accuracy on this weapon too, and Camp Petawawa can provide both. The elevated gun shows the safety officer that they have no more ammunition. The shoot is over. The Army has never claimed to offer dining room service equal to that found in Montreal's better hotels. But few of these hotels, with their linen and silver, have so appreciative a clientele. Army food has always been something of a joke. But in today's Army, the remarks survive as tradition rather than as comments on quality. There won't be much left of this an hour from now. In addition to its military function, the regiment has an important social life, and all ranks participate in many wintertime activities. The biggest of these is the annual Cavalry Ball, one of the major events of Montreal's social calendar. Civilian guests and members of the regiment mingle in a modern world against a background of the past. The special guest of honor, Major General F.F. Worthington, the father of Canada's Armored Corps, chats with the commanding officer of the regiment, Lieutenant Colonel Barry, and his wife. As you can see, it is not a purely military ball. The cut and color of the uniforms contrast with the somber dignity of the dinner jackets worn by other distinguished guests. Mrs. Worthington. Major General Frank Fleury, General Officer commanding Quebec Command, with his wife. Former commanding officers of the regiment also turn out. The guests are all greeted courteously by the hosts, and old friends often steal a moment for a quick chat. The regiment band, founded in 1931, plays during dinner, and afterwards provides music for the traditional first dance of the evening, the Cavalry Canter. For the ladies of the regiment, occasions such as this offer an opportunity to take part in the military life. They usually make the most of this opportunity, and the ball gowns do their best to rival the splendor of the uniforms. Like the ladies, the drill hall is also dressed up for the occasion. After the cavalry canter, the dancing begins in earnest. The guest of honor joins in. So does the CO. The cavalry ball provides a moment of gallantry in a utilitarian world. Soldiers under canvas. Every summer, Camp Farnham becomes the center of military training for the militia. Tents spring up in empty fields, and for a few weeks, thousands of soldiers from all over Quebec converge to finish their year's work with realistic field training. Among those tents are the lines and the headquarters of the Royal Canadian Hussars, gathered together from Montreal, Saint-Jean, and Montreal South Longueuil to train as a unit. There is much good-natured rivalry between the different squadrons, and Camp Farnham is a good place to put their rivalry to work. At first, the troopers are kept busy preparing the stores and equipment they will be using during the week. There is much to be done, and regimental equipment must be the best in the camp. And the regiment must have wireless. There are opportunities, too, for a smoke, while stories of last year's camp are exchanged. In the modern army, communications are vital to enable fast-moving elements of the Hussars to maintain contact with their commander. The men are making sure that in the exercise coming up, these sets will work. The Royal Canadian Hussars train with wheeled vehicles as well as with tanks. Part of their job is to provide the Army with skilled ground reconnaissance. This calls for intelligence, skill, and initiative on the part of all ranks of the regiment. Here, a convoy commander prepares to lead his men on a recce mission. A man trained for convoy driving and reconnaissance work must be a good driver, and it shows when he takes his own car out on the road, too. As the convoy turns onto the main road and heads for the training area, the men wonder what problems they will face. The problems will be many and varied, because a soldier in the Hussars must be prepared to cope with any situation. This is where the exercise starts, and from here the trucks will be directed to their tasks. These men decide from the map how to perform their job. The radio operator will receive instructions and relay information to the commander. Convoys turn onto the secondary roads to give men practice in map reading while on the move. It takes skill, but these men are competent. The commanding officer of the Hussars directs the exercise by radio. He is in touch with his own men, as well as the teams of umpires that are helping to control the troop movements. Umpires position themselves ahead of the troop movement and present problems to the men as they arrive. Each truck commander must solve it correctly and pass on the right information to his commanding officer. With trucks scattered all over the countryside, strict control is exercised by wireless. That's probably a report coming in now. All information is entered on the battle map. While the recce squadron is fanning out over the training area outside camp, the rest of the regiment is busy with the tanks. Here the crews are topping up their tanks with diesel fuel. To drive these treads, it takes twin diesel engines and 375 horses. The tank itself weighs 37 tons fully loaded, and the fuel consumption does not compare with any of the lower-priced compacts. This tank gets about 2 miles to the gallon. Fueling is hard work in the field, and about 30 of these cans have to be poured into each tank, one at a time, until it's full. A job well done, until the next time. The tanks go from the fueling point to the next area, where they will practice driving and tactics. To get accustomed to the feel of the tanks, the crews put them through their paces. Informal inspections are also part of the camp life. With the Hussars in the field, there is seldom any fault to find. This time, the inspecting officer is Colonel Prieur, 10 Militia Group Commander. Inspection over, and time for a smoke break. Now the tanks return to the maintenance area for a briefing on the next exercise. This is a tactical exercise, so everyone is on their toes. Orders are clear and concise. Every crew member must know exactly what is being done and why it is being done. To make things clearer, impromptu models on the ground. Final details settled, the tank commanders are ready. The order to mount up. These men are training hard. It's not for pay and it's not for glory. They enjoy the comradeship of the regiment, the close-knit relationship between officers and men. They realize that in the Royal Canadian Hussars, the harder they work for the regiment, the greater benefit they will gain for themselves. That's the way it's been for over 150 years.